Hi, it's Amanda. Welcome to my channel. As you'll see today, I have my sister here joining me. She watched the trailer for the movie that's coming out tomorrow, Bad Hair, and off the back of that came running to me saying that I had to watch this thing, and she had quite a reaction to it. It brings up a lot of interesting topics, and that's what we're here to discuss today.
I loved the concept of bad hair not referring to natural kinky hair. I just think it's a fantastic concept to investigate the process of kind of getting, I mean, obviously it's an extreme way of saying it, but like the evil of once you kind of make that decision to modify your hair, how you're kind of stuck with it. And thinking about, the Chris Rock movie investigating the network of Black women in the context of all the money that's put towards hair care versus the amount of money that we're actually paid at jobs, and how there's kind of a negative network associated with Black women because of that. And if looking at that as the evil that they're talking about, I just loved seeing how it was investigated, and also just the juxtaposition against what people, I guess what I feel like I see more in Black media, that natural hair tends to be celebrated and beauty tends to be in that natural look. And so granted, the movie is like a throwback, that it's 90s music, they're playing Poison, obviously showing that they're not saying in 2020, they're saying this is kind of mentality of 1990, that back then it was considered beautiful to have long straight hair, and that people would actually be looking at you crazy because you have natural hair. Although interestingly, like random side note, I remember I learned that in a lot of African countries that people don't wear natural hair, that they think it's crazy that a lot of Americans have natural hair, and it's kind of a sign of not having money, that you don't have the finances to put into it. But anyway, that's why it was just, it was very interesting to read about that. But so yeah, just all of those issues in it. I just love the fact that somebody just, well, also what's the name of the person that was the person who did, what's the show that the director was from?
Dear White
People. Yeah, I mean, also like that. I mean, that production is great. So I would love to see I wish I knew the name of the person on this. I don't remember.
When I was watching it, the thing that actually stood out to me, and it pretty much once this scene played, that was the only thing that I could think about. The woman takes the main character into the room with all of the wigs, and the next scene she's like, I hope you're not tenderheaded, and then you see her splitting her hair, braiding her hair really tight, and then putting in tightly, and then putting in the weave. If I was forced, whether it be by peer pressure or something related, into relaxing my hair again, or going out and getting a weave to again comply with that standard of beauty, for me is a horror story.
Like thinking about the years that you were relaxing your hair and doing all of these things to your hair, and the pain that you would go through, and the commitment of having to on a weekly basis do something to kind of make your hair look presentable. And even thinking about like looking at, I remember there was a period of time when I was thinking about getting extensions, and I decided I wanted to get extensions so I could have like hair like how you have right
how
now.
I had when I was younger.
No, I mean like now,
how
your hair is now.
Okay.
Like
okay.
I love long natural hair, and I remember thinking, I would love to get extensions to get it like that, and there was no option to do that. Like,
that actually brings me to the next question then. So they walk into that room, and she's looking at all of the options for her weave, and they were saying like, this is great, it all comes from India, they have the best hair. Indian Remy hair is like the hair for extensions, but we don't have Indian hair. Your thoughts around, matching hair texture, and how the Indian hair that makes up like the majority of the weave and the extensions, like, is based on a hair texture that has nothing to do with the people that are buying this hair.
There was no perception that maybe you might want to have natural hair, but just long natural hair. The assumption is that if you wanted to have long hair, you didn't want it to look anything like that. And just like, the rage that I felt seeing that, remembering how I went to so many different hair stores trying to find wigs to try on to see if I could find long natural hair. It is like a purgatory that you're in when you start to committing to keeping your hair in an unnatural look, because there's a struggle, whether it's relaxing it or the extensions or the weave. And once you commit to it, I mean, that's kind of where you are for quite some time. You're financially committed to it, and look wise, it's a horror story. It really is. Because once you get out, I think it's realizing, and again, not to say anything against people who decide to keep their hair relaxed, but it's the difference between choice. Like, we also were forced into that situation.
And why are you relaxing your hair?
Yeah.
Is it because you're trying to conform, or because you particularly like relaxed hair?
It's also probably because your mother took you to get your hair relaxed when you were very young. And so once, it's like there's no way that when I was, 11 years old, I was going to shave my head. Like that would have been another horror story.
There was this one place that I found down on First Avenue in Manhattan. And I would go there I don't remember how often I had to change the hair because it got old. But it was so difficult. You go in there and they put you in that stool, and there's like a long line of people in the stool, and then you have people in the seat, and there's just hair everywhere, and you're trying to find what matches your hair texture. What I was trying to look for, because also I was doing leave out, and at that point I didn't necessarily want to have to bone straighten my leave out. So I was trying to find something that was somewhat kinky but also straight. So I think I ended up going with the kinky straight. But what they were trying to give me in the beginning was like, oh, we have this beautiful, Indian Remy hair, and when it gets wet, instead of it kinking up like your hair would, it'll give you some beautiful beach waves. And I'm just thinking, yeah, okay, beautiful beach waves, that's a thing, but not for me.
I feel like I brought that up a lot though when you had the extension, it was a weaver extensions. What?
I had both.
It was called, yeah. Because I think I had said to you many times, like, I don't understand why you get that, because your hair naturally is like what you're paying to get done.
I wasn't ready for that, I guess, at that point, because I wanted long, silky, straight hair. And I had silky, straight hair. It was probably like shoulder length, maybe a little past shoulder length, but I wanted it like mid-back length. So that was why I was getting the extensions. And it was just such a process. And I think it was spending like $188 cash every several weeks, because for some reason the hair started to deteriorate. The main point that I'm always making in my videos is that there's a time and there's a place and there's a mindset that you have to be in. I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. I was around people with type 1 and 2 hair, and then I was around, other black girls with relaxed hair. I wasn't around anyone with natural hair. So why would it's not my personality. I wasn't going to be the pioneer out there, discovering that I could grow out my hair and then doing that in the face of everyone else.
It's interesting looking at the concept of community as it's shown in the video. She didn't even think about what options that she had. And also with you thinking about just growing out your hair naturally, there would be a lot of judgment within our family. Because, when I did the quote unquote big chop, my mom had said, like, I got all these comments when I posted my picture on Facebook. People were saying all these great things, and my mom was like, oh, your white friends are just saying that because they're trying to be politically correct. You actually look really bad. And for me, granted, she'd given me a lot of self-esteem, so like I was like, okay, whatever, that's her opinion. I think I look great, and I know that, there are a lot of people who think that I look great as well, but that's a huge thing. That, if I had low self-esteem, I would have ran out and gotten my hair relaxed or tried to see if I can get a weave so I could look pretty again. So it's definitely something you have to have community-based as well.
It is funny, and you also have to make sure that this is what you want to do, because I know a lot of people in the comment section have mentioned that they do a big chop and then all of a sudden they're getting divorced, or something along those lines, that there's some kind of visceral reaction within your family. You put a lot of work into your hair, so it's very difficult, I would say, to go through all of that effort only to have society or your family tell you your hair doesn't look nice, you should go back to relaxed hair. Like in the movie Bad Hair, in the trailer, she is getting the weave because of the reaction that she's getting from her boss. She doesn't have the flowing hair, and she's gotten feedback that it's just not good enough.
Well, for me, it's funny because a few years ago, I did the big chop. I shaved my head, and I was thinking recently about the fact that when I did that, I didn't think twice about it. It didn't even occur to me that it might be an issue when I went to work. And, when I went to work, people, they complimented me. Whether or not it was genuine, that's another story. But there was no kind of feedback. But I also worked at a translations company. So, it was very much about global, diversity and everything. But it is definitely interesting because I've never been in an environment where I've felt, or rather, I guess at more than one of my jobs, people have said to me that I should be working in the fashion industry or doing something creative because it feels like I'm being stifled in that environment, but it's never been said in a negative way. And so, and I guess because I've never felt stifled by, I've never looked around me and said, oh, people are dressed this way, I want to do that. It just never really had an impact on me. I've not had the experience of dressing in a very formal way while having natural hair. Because I think about one of our parents' best friends, that she's always had, her look is very conservative, and she's always just had hair shorter than mine, natural. And I don't think you would never think of her as like an artsy creative type. She's very much a scientific, she's 100% math, and her hair speaks math. Like her hair says she doesn't want to style it, she doesn't want to do anything, she just wants to cut it off and not be bothered. So I think there is, I mean, I don't think the two things are always tied together.
You're right, it's the styles that, yeah. I also feel like, though, if she had like bigger natural hair, she would have that same kind of response.
You mean like your hair, or you mean like a big afro?
Well, I don't think, I would say like a big afro.
Yeah. I think you would never have a big afro, would you? Because I think that was...
Your point being that my personality does suit the corporate life?
Yeah, I'm saying that's not natural versus relaxed. That's how you're wearing your hair. That's still, like, you could have natural hair and then you wear it, like, the way that you wear it, that's still more, that's not artsy creative, I guess.
That's true, okay. Yeah. Okay, that's fair. I don't think someone has ever said, like, oh, your hair looks great when I'm wearing, like, an amazing twist out. I think it's always, like, when my hair has kind of reached that, like, fuzzy, point where people are trying maybe not to look at it because it doesn't look that great. So instead of just not looking at it or not acknowledging it, they're like, oh, it looks great. And then it's like, oh, but I know that it doesn't. And now everyone's staring at me. There have been times when my hair does look nice. I'm wearing like a really, really good twist out and someone will ping me and say, oh, your hair looks really nice. Mm-hmm. That I actually enjoy. I think that's really nice.
I feel like being the only Black person there, I mean, at this point, it's something you have to kind of get used to, that if you can go working in, I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't work it, but I'm saying, like, if you were working in an environment where it was diverse, right, it wouldn't be an issue. But, I mean, as long as you're
in an environment that's a different environment.
Working.
And
yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
So I just feel like it's
culture.
Because I feel like we've dealt with this from day one, because we grew up in white neighborhoods where you enter the room and you are somebody who looks different from everybody else, and people can comment on it. And when you get your hair relaxed, I mean,
people would always comment when you get your hair relaxed.
Every time you get your hair relaxed. So it's just different now. That now it's a different thing they're commenting on. And I mean, hopefully it's not tied to confidence, because I know that you are working on your hair and that you love your natural hair. But I feel like if it's the same kind of reaction of people being like, oh, you're Black and you have hair that I'm not accustomed to seeing, so I'm going to comment on it because it's something that I see as different, it's going to always be a thing unless you go to a largely people like business as people of color. But
yeah, I think we've beleaguered this point enough. Let's move on.
It's funny. A family friend, I remember she once said because her daughter has very loose curls, and instead of having kinky hair, I remember she was saying that, it makes her really sad. She wishes, because her hair is because the curls are so loose, she wishes it was tighter curls. And I was thinking, that's the first time in my life that I'd heard anybody say that, anybody complain that they wish that somebody's hair was kinkier because you can't do as much with it. And so, I mean, it was a nice feeling. And I think that's the same thing of like seeing bad hair. It was such a great feeling to hear somebody like actually flipping the concept, and bad hair not for the first time not being, the kinky hair.
What do you think about the concept of creating a horror movie with the context around a weave?
I mean, again, I love it. I mean, that's it. But I mean, earlier we were talking about the fact that, like, when you had the weave, it made me very angry, and it's something that I brought up several times.
I don't
not having, and I understand. I mean, it's your, like I said, it's your right to make that decision. But to me, the rage that I would feel of the concept of spending so much money to have hair that looks completely different from your own and hiding your hair. I mean, the concept that, obviously, this is like a very basic concept in the Black hair community. And so I just loved seeing it, amplified and used in that way, because it's very much the way a lot of people feel. And it's, again, not to say bad things to people who choose to get a weave. I understand that that's a decision, but it's also where you're coming from. If you're coming from that decision because it's just the hair that you want versus the hair because you hate your own hair or you hate how you look. I mean, granted, also Black hair, like you mentioned, it's difficult to maintain. So if you want to have long, natural hair, and then if you have the hours to spend doing that, then that's one thing. But if you have the money and you can go and get the weave that allows you to not spend hours on your hair every week, then that's also, that's a good option too.
I think it's a great concept, because obviously you want to get rid of the villain in the movie, and the villain in this situation is the weave that she got because she was forced by social pressures to get the weave, not because she wanted the weave. Mm-hmm. I think it'll be interesting for us to continue to have these conversations, because, again, we grew up in the same household. We have two completely different perspectives on a lot of things, actually. So we have two very different hair types, two different, styles, and it's just nice to get that perspective. We have actually never discussed hair before. Only when we just decided to do this video did we actually have this conversation. We're pretty much having our first conversation on camera right now. just a little behind the scenes. We actually recorded a video right before this that went on for 48 minutes. And we were originally planning to talk about bad hair, and then, 38 minutes in, I was like, oh, we forgot to talk about bad hair. So, because the movie's coming out tomorrow, I did want to center this discussion around that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. If you like my content and haven't done so already, please consider subscribing. And we will talk to you in our next natural hair social commentary video next time. Thanks, and have a good one. I forgot what I was saying.